icebreaker. Even though we've kind of already been talking a little bit, but I like my icebreakers, so I want to use them. So let's do our name, and in honor of Valentine's Day, our favorite pickup line, and then in honor of talking about travel, the place that's on the top of your bucket list to go to. Let's start with Emma, because you're at the far left of my screen.
Okay, I am Emma Wilson. My favorite pickup line is usually just some mundane question. So do you like bread? That's it. That's pretty much it. I'm not very good at flirting. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And the place I want to go to the most is England. So badly. All of it.
Mm-hmm. That was good. Sarah, do you want to go real quick?
Sure. So, I don't know about the pickup line. I honestly have not given it much thought, but maybe something along the lines of, well, something more honest, I guess, actually. I'd probably go for something more honest where, like, even just like, would you like to go out on a date? And as far as a place I'd like to go, I really think that Italy would probably be, if it was foreign, it would be Italy. If it was local or like within the US, it would be Vermont.
Nice. Rachel?
Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so my voice is going to be wacky.
Oh, sorry.
That's all you're going to see of me because for some reason Hangouts is not registering my camera. It's not detecting it for some reason, and I can't figure out how to fix it. So, but anyways, I'm Rachel Palmer. Are we doing like where we're from?
Yeah, sure. You can do that too.
Well, I'm in Alabama, down south. Pickup line. Oh goodness, there's so many good ones. I guess one of the wild ones out there. Are you my appendix? Because I have a funny feeling in my stomach that makes me think I should take you out.
Oh my gosh.
That is good.
As for where I'd want to go, I've always wanted to go to Germany. I have a lot of family from there, and I love the history, and I've just always wanted to go there.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, Wyatt?
That puts me next. My name is Wyatt Lieberman. I live in Nacogdoches, Texas. As far as a pickup line, I've never really had much of a need for one. So I don't have one.
Okay.
On my bucket list for places to go is Peru, but I've already been to Peru. So maybe
You need a new bucket.
Honduras.
Okay, wait. While we're still on the topic of pickup lines, has anyone seen the Blimey Cow video of Christian pickup lines?
It's so good.
Oh,
I haven't seen that one.
oh my
Well,
gosh.
You should watch it, Wyatt. You never know when you'll need one.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
That's funny. Jessica?
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Jessica, and Favorite pickup line. Okay, I have a friend who really likes to use pickup lines just for fun. And let's see if I can get this right. There's a couple variations. Did you die recently? Because you look like an angel. So yeah, I like the angel ones. They're kind of hilarious. Bucket list where I would go. Honestly, the world. But really high up right now, I'm feeling Chile and Japan. But basically, like, my dream thing is to just pack a bag, go to the airport, walk up to a counter and say, give me the cheapest international flight that leaves right now.
That sounds like it would be really fun.
Uh-huh.
Depending on where the flight was going.
Yeah, like what if it says, like Egypt or something, and you're like,
I don't mind.
second
I would
cheapest.
literally go anywhere.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to be more prepped than that. Like, you don't know what you're going to encounter or if you'll get back.
Yeah, I've gone a lot of places already, so I'm not too worried.
Makes sense. Well, I guess I'll go real quick and then can open up the floor for questions. So I'm Ashley, and my favorite pickup line. I've never actually had one used on me, so it's just an in theory type of a thing. I kind of have an affinity for Solomon and his "your hair is like a flock of goats." Just because it's hilarious. And it's like, I can't believe a girl actually fell for that. But I like
I want to
that
write that one down in case I need one.
It's a good idea. And then top of my bucket list for where to go, probably have to say Great Britain as well.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty cool. Just all the history, and I also have family that goes back to that area, so that would be cool to see. Though I have a lot of other places in Europe and New Zealand on there as well, so it's hard to choose.
New Zealand is very high up there. Do you know what zorbing is?
No.
I really want to zorb in New Zealand. It's like you get in this ball, this giant like plastic ball, and you just roll down hills.
Oh, wow. Hello, Emily and Hope.
Hello. We need some more guys in this call. Where are all the guys?
We do,
Oh,
yeah.
They're all out traveling, don't you know?
Start
No,
texting
they're
your
not.
friends. Well, we were just doing the icebreaker here, gals. So, and you just joined in perfect time to be able to weigh in on that. So we're doing our name, in honor of Valentine's Day, our favorite pickup line, and in honor of the topic, your top place at the top of your bucket list to go to in the world. So let's start with Emily.
Well, my name is Emily. Top favorite pickup line. Okay, well, this wasn't on Valentine's Day, but I did get asked this once, and it was the best. I was standing at a street waiting for the light to turn to cross, and this guy walked up next to me and asked me, "Are you crossing?" No, I just like standing on street corners. I really want to go to Ireland. That's one of my top places that I want to go.
Oh, yeah. I just want to go.
Northern Ireland or Ireland?
Ireland. All of it. That was the last question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good. Okay, Hope.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, sometimes my computer has issues and it makes weird noises, so if that happens, just mute me.
Okay.
So yeah, my name is Hope. I don't really know any pickup lines. I'm not very good at picking people up. I don't know. I really don't know what to say as a pickup line. But the top place I would like to go to is definitely Southeast Asia and Thailand. And I've been to Myanmar once, but I'd like to go there again too.
Nice.
Okay, well, Jessica is the resident expert here on international travel. So I'm going to open up the floor for anyone to ask questions that they might have about international travel. So go ahead. Don't feel like you need to raise your hand or anything. Just go ahead and. And if no one has questions, I have questions too. So.
Maybe you should open it up.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Let's see. So I have never been out of the country before, so I am completely green. So I was curious if you have any tips on getting passports, like where to get them, you know, what time frame you want to make sure you get them in, anything that you can think of in that regard.
Definitely. Well, there's a couple options. You could apply online, or you could apply in person at a post office. I mean, that's what I know of, like off the top of my head. You can do post office. There might be other places. If you apply online, you're going to have to get a passport photo anyway. And you can do that at a post office. So that's like the nice thing about just going to a post office. Mm-hmm. But you also want to make an appointment, because that way you'll ensure that you get to be seen. And like my best tip for passports is, if you want to travel, just apply for a passport now, because having your passport makes it way easier to travel. And it usually takes a couple months at least to get your passport processed. Mm-hmm. I think it's around $200 for a passport. So it's not super cheap, but it will last for 5 or 10 years. I think it's 5 for adults.
It's 10.
10 for adults, 5 for kids.
It's 5 for kids and 10 for adults.
Awesome. That's better than I thought. I was assuming the worst for myself in case that was true.
I have another suggestion. I have a number of coworkers who are in the U.S. illegally. They can probably find someone who can get you a passport cheaper and easier.
I really recommend that one. You might get a quicker passport to jail.
Yeah, another benefit about having a passport too is, even just within the states, it's getting harder to travel on airplanes in some states without passports.
Really?
Yes.
So
like if you are a Minnesotan, you have to have a passport to fly on airplanes.
Those dangerous Minnesota people.
I think it has something to do with the Real ID Act. There are some states that haven't complied with it yet, and so they're saying that those people have to use passports in order to fly, since their driver's license doesn't comply.
Wow.
Yeah, if you don't have the driver's license with the star on it, then you're going to have to start using your passport to fly. But if you have the driver's license with the star on it, then you're good.
Well, without getting into a political discussion about why I think that shouldn't be, another tip about passports, because I went out of the country a couple months ago and had to get mine, and it was a big, complicated ordeal. You your birth certificate, they're going to ask for it when you send in and apply for a passport. Make sure that you send the real birth certificate, because when I sent mine in, I got a letter 4 weeks later saying the birth certificate that you sent in is not authentic. It is a birth card, which Texas does, which I was born in Texas. So turns out my parents didn't even have my birth certificate. So we had to actually contact Texas government and get the records to get me a birth certificate, which they didn't have me in their records because of that. And so we had to, it was complicated. So that birth certificate part is really important. Like, it stretched the passport process by like 3 months, and I really needed to get it because I was leaving. So just be certain about that before you send it.
Yeah.
So, like, are you supposed to?
You just have the right connections. You can just skip all.
This is gonna sound like really naive or something. Do you send like a copy of it or the actual like birth certificate?
You have to send the actual, sadly.
Okay.
They're very thorough.
So you just take it with you when you go to the post office, or do you have to actually like mail it in?
I just posted a link in the chat about passport application. And this is really helpful because it lays out all the things.
But yeah, you have to mail yours in, as far as I know. Now, of course, when you travel, like, never take it actually with you. Like, that would be a situation like to have a copy instead of the real thing.
Of the birth certificate, or?
Yeah, the birth certificate. I mean, it's good to have copies of your passport too, but that's another discussion.
Rachel, did you do it through a post office, or did you do a mail-in application?
Well, I went to the post office to mail it. Because like, you can have your picture taken and fill out the form while you're there, but you still have to send it to the passport office in Washington, D.C. So it's going to be mailed regardless.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because also if you're renewing a passport, they mail your actual passport. So like, they have to have that actual form.
And it's a lot easier to renew.
It is.
Your passport than
far
to get
easier.
a new one. So if you already
Just
have,
bite the bullet. Do it.
don't let it expire.
But also, good point you brought up about copying your passport. Yeah, when you travel outside of the country, it's really good to have a copy of your passport that you can carry on your person. And then you just want to make sure that your passport is in a safe place. So like, if you're going to carry it around with you when you're walking out and about, then you want it to be like right next to your body.
Do you use one of those like fanny packs that kind of sit under your clothes?
Well, there's a lot of options. There's like money belts that's kind of like a money belt. Or you could use a fanny pack. I really like getting like a travel wallet. It's about this big and it has a little cord. And so it's really close to me and I can feel it there all the time, and it seals up pretty nicely. So it would be really hard to get something out of.
Makes sense. So you can wear it like around your neck under your clothes.
You could wear it under your clothes, or I just wore it on top of my clothes.
Okay.
But yeah, and then there's like necklace ones. And if you're going to carry your actual passport, you probably want to put it in a plastic bag. When I was in Spain this past summer, one of the students ended up like washing all of his personal documents. And so that was crazy and created this big hoopla that we had to troubleshoot. So
That's so terrible.
You don't want to wash your passport.
No, that doesn't sound good.
So like, my personal thing I would rather do is, if I like have a hotel room or something, I'm going to put my passport in like a really hidden part of my suitcase, or like lock it in the safe or something. And then I'm just going to carry a copy with me outside of the hotel
So,
room.
what would you use your copy for as you're walking out and about, like in the city or whatever?
It's just good to have in case like something does happen to your passport, or in case you need to show a form of identification. Or like when we were in Spain this past summer, we had an issue where a suitcase fell into the street and knocked into somebody's car, and the person got out of the car and was really mad. And the professor, I called him and he was like, I'm going to not come, because if I come and can speak Spanish, then they are going to take us into the police station and it's going to be a mess. But if they know that you're American and you act like you can't understand anything, then they won't do anything, because it would be more of a pain for them than to let you just go. So like in that case, you can be like, I'm American.
One kind of caveat that I don't know, I guess you can chime in on, Jessica, because you're probably a lot more traveled than me. But I was working at a conference in Thailand, and depending on where you are within a country, and of course depending on what country you're in, hotels are not always 100% safe. So leaving valuables and things in your room is sometimes not recommended. That you want to kind of keep it with you, which also has its own dangers. But then you're kind of between, like, do I leave it here and have it potentially stolen, or do I keep it on me and have it potentially stolen? I mean, that's kind of up to you and your judgment. But one thing to help with, to make sure that you're not misplacing or damaging your passport, because there are like electronic chips in it, believe it or not. Make sure you get a good passport case, put it in, because having a solid case around it will remind you not to bend it or dent it, or to really take care of it so it's not lost in a pocket or something. That was really important for me, because going through customs so many times, like, you're constantly grabbing your passport, so just having it in something very distinguished, really important.
Yeah, those are really good advice pieces. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that, Rachel. That's a challenge depending on the country. That's one of the good things to know going into a country is like, where are you staying? Is it safe? And then that's a place where, yeah, if the hotels aren't very secure, maybe you carry your passport on your person in something that you can keep like close to you, and you leave a copy in your suitcase. It's just good to have a copy as a backup.
That makes sense. What was the thing that called again that you put yours in? That you carry your stuff with?
Oh, just a passport case or a passport wallet. There are really fancy ones, and then there's really cheap ones. I mean, but like cross the middle line where it's durable and it works, but you don't have to go all out unless you want to.
Makes sense. What was yours called, Jessica?
I like travel wallets.
Okay.
Yeah. Sarika, so as someone who's never been out of the country, once my ticket is booked, what should I bring with me, assuming I were going somewhere like Spain for study abroad? Okay, so, well, it is really going to depend where you were going. If you were going to Spain to study abroad, so like, obviously there's what clothes do you bring? There's what things do you bring, like, for your personal entertainment and stuff. But if we just like don't address those for right now, some things that I think are really important to think through are your communication, and I'll like talk more about these, your communication, your necessities, your money, your any kind of converters you need. Those are like some of the main things. So communication. Phones get really confusing when you travel internationally. you kind of have like three main options. You could unlock your phone and use an international SIM card, which you could buy in the country you go to. That's nice because you can just charge it according to your needs of minutes there. That's usually the cheapest way, but some people's phones don't let them unlock it. And some people, that also can mean that you don't have phone service to other countries, in which case, like, you can use different apps. Like WhatsApp is a really good app that uses Wi-Fi for texting or calling. You could also use your international plan for your phone. That's usually really expensive, but it can be a good option depending what you're looking for. Or you could just buy a small, cheap phone in the country, and then you can keep your whole card set up, and like you can turn off your plan if you want for your American phone, and then you can have your other phone. So that's like communication piece. Necessities. So you want to know like where you're going and what sort of things you'll be able to buy there. Like Spain it's pretty easy to get anything you might need in terms of like cosmetics or foods or things like that. But if I were going to maybe an Asian country, I would be more likely to bring more of those things with me, just because, for instance, I have pretty sensitive health. So there's certain things that I know I'm going to need a certain type of it, and I don't want to count on it being available there, because when you're traveling, your body gets even more sensitive because there's so much change happening. Mm-hmm. So it's just really good to make sure you're covered with anything that you know, my body needs this. Mm. Money, that kind of depends on the country too, but a lot of times the best way to go is to bring a credit card and a debit card, and to know what your transfer fees are. So like with a debit card, you can withdraw from the ATM, but make sure that you know how much it's going to cost to take it out internationally. And then also it can be good like to call your company in advance and tell them, hey bank, I'm going to be in this country, just so you know, don't shut off my money. And then credit card, if you can get a credit card that doesn't have an international transaction fee, that can be a really good way to go also. It's usually not a good idea to bring a bunch of American cash with you, because then you just have cash, and while it might be nice to have some cash and get that transferred, it's less secure because it's easier to get stolen. You can always just call and be like, please shut down my credit card. I lost it. It got stolen. And then the fourth thing, converters. So most other countries use other power converters than we do, because we think it's a great idea to have systems that are different from the rest of the world. Anyway, so I have like a block that has converters for pretty much every country. And I like that because then I know, okay, that's going to work in Europe, that's going to work in Asia. But you could also get like really cheap ones when you're in the country. And then sometimes, well, there's a difference between like an adapter and a converter. So an adapter is just like you plug it into the plug, you plug your thing in, and the power comes through. A converter switches the amount of power, because some power outlets put out more power than we put out through ours. And so that could like burn out your appliances. Any questions about those things? I know I just like threw out so many pieces of information.
I probably just want to say, like, I think most people have some forms of medications or vitamins that they'll need to take with them. And you might want to talk to your doctor or allergist or somebody like before you head out, like, hey, I'm going to this country. Is there anything I need to know specifically? like about where I'm going, or what do I need to take with me.
Yes, that's a good idea.
I have a question, but it's completely unrelated. So if anyone has anything to say about that, then continue. But I do have another question.
I think you can go ahead. I think Jessica did a good
Okay.
job covering it all.
So I have a question about basically just culture shock, because I went to Myanmar for a month and I definitely had culture shock, and it got pretty bad for a time. And I was just wondering, what would your advice be on that, and what if you've had any experiences with that, or just your thoughts on culture shock?
Oh my gosh, culture shock is one of my favorite topics. And I think it's super important for everyone to know about, whether you're traveling internationally or whether you're just like facing transitions or whether you're moving even within the US, because like we do not think about the amount of cultures there are around us. Quick like backstory about me, because I know I didn't really say anything. I've been to 8 different countries and 40 states, and I have seen so much cultural differences just between the 40 states. And that's one of my favorite things, is to help people see America has so many cultures, y'all. So super interesting. Culture shock. There's like 4 main stages. I actually have this on a note on my computer, so I'm gonna pull it up. When I went to Singapore, we talked a lot about this when we were prepping for the trip. So there's the honeymoon stage, which is like, woohoo, everything is awesome. I love this. I'm so excited. Nothing can go wrong. And then there's the frustration stage, where you like hit a wall of the differences and you're just like, oh, this is frustrating. I don't know what to do. And then there's the coping and adjusting stage. So that's the point where you're in between that frustration and like, and then the next after coping is acceptance. So you're in between those two and you're like, okay, this is uncomfortable, I'm frustrated, but I'm working on it and actively adjusting my mindset and being curious. And then the acceptance stage is like, okay, I appreciate the culture, I accept the culture, I can see the differences, but I'm present here. So like the biggest things to keep in mind with culture shock are, it's real. It takes time. The amount of difference the culture is going to impact how much culture shock you experience. And also like the amount of experience you have shifting between cultures. So like in terms of personal experiences with it, I'll contrast my time going to the Dominican Republic and my time going to Spain. So going to the Dominican Republic, that was like that was probably like the 3rd country I'd been to. And so I hadn't had that much traveling experience. And that's a pretty different culture than America. So like the difference level is high. The amount of experience I had was low. And the climate is really different. And like physically, my body just had a lot of trouble adjusting. So that, I think like you get there and you're like such on a high that you're like, no, everything is awesome. But then like your body just hits this point where it's physically exhausted, and I just am like, oh, I can't do this. I hate this. Why am I here? So I think when you hit that point, the important thing is to be like, okay, this is how I feel. This is okay. This is normal. and then just like have a conversation with someone. If you're there by yourself,
Yeah.
call someone you know. That is not a bad thing to call someone you know. If you're there with other people, tell them because they're probably experiencing it too. So then, like, contrasting that with Spain, Spain is like my 7th country I went to. It's much less of a different culture. And also, I'm way more experienced in switching cultures. So the amount of culture shock I had was a lot lower. But like the biggest thing I've found for myself, and it depends on the person, but for me, it's the physical component. Like when I hit that place where I'm like, I haven't had the sleep I need, my initial adrenaline is running out, and also this is not my comfort zone. That's the place where I just have to be like, okay, get rest, eat something that makes me feel good. Tomorrow will come.
Now,
Yeah.
is there kind of a time frame for those different stages, or does it vary a lot between those factors? And
So I think it depends on a couple things, like the length of the trip, the amount of time change, the amount of difference in culture, and then just like the person. So like the length of the trip, if you're living in a trip, like living in Spain is the longest I've lived out of country. I was there for 6 weeks. And so like you repeat the process. Like every time I thought, oh, I've adjusted, then I would hit a day where I was just like, I want to go home and not speak in Spanish.
yeah,
But you work through it. And every time, what I love is every time you learn so many new things. So that process, when you lean into the challenge, is the place where you grow. Okay, and then time zone difference. The more different the time zone is, the more your body physically is going to have trouble adjusting. And that's also true with like the climate. Tropical climates are really surprisingly weird to adjust to for my experience. Also in Spain, I learned I have to wear sunglasses because it's super dry there. So it was really dry and the tops of buildings are so gorgeous. So I would like walk around staring at the tops of buildings all day in the sun and the dry. And my eyes got like sunburnt. It was bad.
Sounds painful.
Yeah. Length and then your personal adjustment and amount of experience you have. Yeah, some people are better at adjusting and transitioning than other people. Some cultures make you feel more uncomfortable. And the amount you've practiced adjusting makes a big difference. Like, I love change and transition, and that's like a huge part of my life. So I think that's made me get to the point where, yes, I experienced culture shock. But when I was in Spain, it was nice to be able to be like, yeah, I've done this before. And then to be able to be more available to like walk through it with other people who hadn't been out of the country.
Yeah, those stages are interesting because I definitely like I didn't know those were even a thing, but I definitely went through those when I was in Myanmar.
Yeah, what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was. I did not handle it well at all. So, we were there for basically 4 weeks. A little bit less, but pretty close. So, the first week that was kind of the honeymoon phase. I was like, wow, like I'm on a mission trip. I'm in Myanmar. This is amazing. Yeah. And then by the second week, I was kind of starting to get a little bit homesick and just like I missed American food and like just people talking in English and stuff. And it got to a point where there were a couple of days where I was literally so depressed and just so down. I just wanted to cry. Like it was pretty bad. And then, so the leader of the mission trip pulled me aside one day and he was like, Hope, we need to work on this because you're not doing good, basically. And so he prayed with me and we talked about it. And he said that the first couple of times he had gone over, he had culture shock too. And so that was really helpful to hear. And just praying with someone and talking with someone was really helpful too. And after that, I feel like it did get better. And by the last week of the trip, I was having fun again. I was loving it. And I was able to really be able to be there for the last week of the trip. So that was good.
Yeah. I think those stages are super helpful because it makes you realize you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have any of you heard of reverse culture shock? Because that's a thing too.
When you come back into the U.S.?
Yes.
I have heard of that.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay, so basically you have culture shock going and then you adjust and accept that. Then when you come back, you have to readjust because you have a new perspective and new experiences. That looks a little different every time. And right now, I really would just love to be living internationally. When I came back from Spain, I was like, no, I don't want to be back here.
Yeah.
My friends were like, calm down. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So I have a question for you all. What is it that makes you want to travel the most? And I can tell you first, like, why I love to travel. I love to travel because the experiential learning just expands my curiosity. So, like, there's no way for me to not be more curious if I'm walking through a place, seeing new things, smelling new things, hearing new things. And it just like puts my brain on this hyperdrive of excitement, and curiosity is like the epic thing for me.
That's cool. I think it's like part of it for me, if I'm honest, is the whole fear of missing out sort of thing. Because I have so many friends that have gone overseas and I've never have. And so just kind of a little bit of jealousy, I think, is part of it. But I think a good portion of it as well is just the ability to be able to, see things for myself that, I've read about, and then be able to learn about it more in depth than if you're just reading about it in a textbook or in a Wikipedia article or something. So, yeah.
Yes.
That wasn't a to get attention. That's a I can't talk. I guess for me, and this is going to be a total church answer, but definitely missions is a big thing to get the gospel out there. And of course, to do it in a way where the gospel is brought to the culture and not America brought to that culture.
Yes.
Which is important.
Please.
Not to say that I'm not proud to be an American, but so that's always been a motivating aspect. And of course, there is that adventurous part that's just like, there's so much out there. I mean, why not go see it? God made it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Probably the main reason I want to go is I want to go see it because they are beautiful places, and I love, I watch a lot of period dramas, British television, and like the English countryside is just so captivatingly gorgeous to me that I want to go and be in it and see it and just experience it because it is so beautiful. So most of the places I want to go, it's kind of selfish because it's not like I love it because I love their people or I want to share the gospel with them. It's because no, I saw this on TV or I read about it in a book and it sounds so beautiful. Have you read Cry the Beloved Country at all?
No.
Okay. Well, it's set in South Africa, and now, of course, I want to go to South Africa.
I
of
really
course.
want to
Yeah.
go to South Africa.
I had a roommate who was from South Africa, and she of course has very light skin. I mean, she looks American, but she would be on the telephone with her family sometimes, and she would be speaking, South African. And we were on the subway actually, and she gets a call from her mom and is just talking to her in this language. And I swear the 3 people around her were looking at her as if she was crazy. Why is this white girl talking like an African person?
Afrikaans. It's a really cool sounding language.
It really is. And she actually 2 years ago, she officially became an American citizen, and she and her family were excited. But I want to visit South Africa too.
I have friends from South Africa. Well, like the parents are from South Africa, and so they have this really interesting accent. It's like it's a British accent with kind of I can't describe it, but it's like distinct. It's really cool sounding. But their kids were born. Well, they're actually born in one was born in Sweden and one was born in England or something because they traveled around a lot at first. But their kids all sound totally normal. They talk just like I do. But their parents have this very distinct
it's so
South
beautiful.
African. Yeah.
I can pick out people with South African accents because I grew up with a South African family. So, you know, Emma, you said that your reasons are selfish, but I think the more I travel, the more I realize that the perspective and amount of growth you experience from traveling means that it's not selfish. Obviously you can have selfish motives in anything, but going to a different place transforms the way you think. It helps you see other cultures and respect them. It helps you understand people better. It makes you a better learner. And all of those things add value for anyone you interact with.
That's cool. I hadn't thought of that before.
So I have a question about lodging because my dream vacation is basically going and spending I don't know, 3 or 4 months in England. I don't know, somewhere in the countryside or London. I don't really know where. So what are your thoughts on staying in renting a house or an apartment versus a hotel or a bed and breakfast or hostel or camping? I don't know.
Okay. So, yes, there are so many options. So a couple things. It depends on your length of time. Sorry, every time I'm well, it depends on this and it depends on this and it depends on this, but it really does. There's no just poof, this is your perfect travel solution. It does depend on your length of time. A hotel would probably get expensive if you're staying for a longer amount of time. I don't really know what it would look like to rent a place. If you're moving around, you could probably do Airbnbs for a week at a time, and that could probably be pretty reasonably priced. If you're trying to stay in one place, I know there's something called Workaway, which is where you can stay at a place and your lodging is covered. And in exchange, you do part-time work. So you could do that with part-time nannying or part-time ESL teaching or part-time helping around a hostel. Honestly, I have not stayed at a hostel yet. It is on my bucket list. But I think that can be a good option. Like, obviously, you just want to look up to, like, what are reviews? How safe is the area? So you know what you're getting into. Like, I don't think we need to be terrified to travel or think that it's going to be super dangerous anywhere we go. But it is good to be informed and to be aware.
Yeah, definitely. I have read a little bit online about like women traveling alone and solo travel, and it's definitely doable. You just have to be kind of careful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Taken to be like, everybody thinks of Taken, but
So over.
is a really bad idea. Because don't let your thirst for adventure override your common sense. Because it might be a great moment, but if something happens, you're not going to remember that great moment. You're going to remember the trouble you get into, or maybe not even get out of. So,
right. That's a really good point, Rachel. Like, so much is common sense. Like, be aware and have common sense. Like, common sense says, don't walk through dark alleys. Common sense says, like, look around you. Common sense says, don't, like, put in your earbuds and zone out the world if you're in a place that isn't really safe.
Makes sense. I've heard from someone that traveling like as a group of 3 can be like one of the cheapest options, because you can usually fit in one like hotel room or bed and breakfast room, and then you can split the cost 3 ways. Do you have any experience with that or thoughts on that?
Traveling with people is a lot of fun. Definitely the cheaper part. Yeah, like, so in Spain, last year we were a pretty small group, and that was unique. Because of that, like, my professor would try to find the cheapest Airbnb places to stay, but it's pretty impossible to find places for one person. So usually like 2 or 3 people. I don't know, 2 people might be easier to find places for than 3. Also, that's nice too, because if you're like out in public and somebody wants to go to the bathroom and doesn't want to have to like carry all their stuff in with them, the other person can watch it.
That makes sense.
Do you have any experience with traveling with a pet at all?
I travel with stuffed animals. I have giraffes. No, I don't. I'm not a pet person. Sorry.
It's okay.
Also, though, interesting comment. I have read about the benefits of, actually, I read about it some, but I watched Spanish vlogs about the benefits of solo travel. Like, traveling alone is really good for your brain in ways that traveling with others is not. Mm-hmm. You're going to learn things that you would not if you had someone else to fall back on. But similarly, like, traveling with other people is good for your brain too, because you get their perspectives on the culture and you get to process with them. So it's just cool too to think about that, like, you have those benefits either way, just different ones. Mm-hmm. Did you travel alone to Peru, Wyatt?
No, not really. No, I didn't. I flew there. We had a group of people, but I didn't fly with a group.
Okay.
But like, it just so happened that there was one other person in our group, and we ended up being on the same flight. So that was nice. On the way back, I was on my own. But I was with other people the whole time I was in Peru.
Okay. Cool. Ooh, I want to revisit this question Sarika asked about recommended things to take on a trip, like the essentials, in terms of comfort. So there are a couple things I really value having when I travel. A travel pillow is really nice. And I have one that's like a memory foam one that you can roll up really tightly and it compresses to be about this big. So I can fit that in my backpack, which is awesome. I don't sleep well on airplanes. And I really don't sleep well if I have kinks in my neck. And especially if you have like 18 hours of flight, you need to be able to sleep. It's nice to bring something with you that will help you sleep in terms of like melatonin or like a sleeping aid. Socks on airplanes are really important, and sweatshirts. I also like having something like a sweatshirt too, just so I can like roll it up behind my back if I don't like the way my seat is or something like that. Flip-flops are good too for whatever kind of weather it is, in case you're at a place that's more public or something, or like in Spain, staying in the host homes. My host mom didn't like us to walk barefoot in the house. So I was glad I had flip-flops or like slippers, something like that can be good. Sunglasses, I found that out the hard way. And then like, I like having a few sort of snacks as a backup option. Sometimes you can't eat things or you just really want something you know you like. So that's nice if you can have a few small things like that.
I think I would have to like lock it away from myself until I really needed it, because I will always eat everything that's there. I wouldn't really like hold myself back. It'd be gone before the plane took off. You're like, oops, oh dear.
Yes. Oh, so true. Yeah, I'm actually pulling up a sample packing list I have. Okay. Water bottle. I love bringing my own water bottle.
Did you have trouble? Have you ever had trouble getting like clean water, like really clean water?
Yeah, so that depends a lot on the country. In Spain and Israel, the water was fine. I could drink any water anywhere. Like I would fill up my water bottle in bathrooms. In the Dominican Republic, you cannot drink the water. It will make you sick. You cannot even brush your teeth with it. So like that's a good thing to figure out when you get to a country. You don't want to spend your first few days being super sick.
Bottled water is your friend.
It is.
How do you handle medical emergencies?
Ooh.
That also is going to depend on the country. It's good to know your insurance policy and to have your insurance information. Spain is interesting because they're like, if you have a problem, you don't go to the doctor, you just go to the hospital, which is very different than we would do here. That's where I have the most experience in terms of medical stuff. So I would just find out what's the approach for that country, and then know what your insurance information is and all that.
And you only took like the melatonin or whatever, like for the really long flights, like 18 hours.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing with flights. You want to know what is my time I'm leaving from, what's my time I'm getting there, and then you want to, as quickly as possible, adjust into the new schedule. So we flew out of Virginia we flew out of Philadelphia, but whatever, East Coast, at like 9 p.m. on like whatever Friday. And then we arrived in Spain at 8 a.m. in the morning. We did not sleep until 10 p.m. at night, Spain time. It's really miserable, but it's really important because if you don't do that, then your body will have a really hard time adjusting. And so the goal is like to as much as possible, put yourself on that schedule, no matter how hard it is. So like if you wake up at 4 in the morning, that does not mean you should get up at 4 in the morning. That means you should at least lay there and keep trying to rest till a reasonable hour to wake up. I find it's a lot harder for me coming back from a trip to adjust to the time, because going to the trip, you have all the excitement and the hormones like adrenaline, woohoo. And so just the excitement keeps you going a lot. But coming back, you're tired, you're like, oh, same old thing. So again, it's really important to try to adjust yourself into the schedule, but like reasonably, don't expect to be back on a schedule in under 3 days when you come back from a trip, is what I'd say. And like going, don't expect to be on a schedule in under 3 days. Like you might not feel it super strongly that whole time, but don't expect it.
Yeah, when I went to Peru, now Peru's the exact same time zone as we are here in Texas, so that was nice. But like I left out of Houston in the evening, got to Peru in the morning, and that was the first time I had ever flown, and I didn't sleep one bit on the airplane. And so we got to Peru in the morning and went all day long. And so I went like 36 hours without sleep.
Oh, I've done that.
It's rough.
Now, and like it was fine for me because it was the first time I'd ever, like, kind of like you're talking about the adrenaline, you know, I was good, but you know, also I wasn't there for very long, so I didn't have to really adjust that much, if that makes sense. You know, I was just there and then I left pretty much.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Because if it's like, I'm here for 2 weeks, there's an extent where you can just be like, yeah. I can push through anything for 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So one of the weirdest things for me when I was in Spain was trying to get that mindset of, I'm living here.
Yeah.
Because being there for 6 weeks, I couldn't be like, yeah, I don't have to work out for 6 weeks, or yeah, I can eat whatever, or yeah, I can go without sleep. It's really fun. I highly recommend, if you can, to go and be in another country for at least a month.
I'm planning on going back to Peru later this year, and it's going to be an internship, and it's going to be at least a month, probably more.
What are you going to be doing?
I'm going to be, I don't know exactly what my job description is going to be, but I'm going to be an intern with some missionaries down there.
Cool. Do you speak Spanish?
No. I can speak a lot of Spanish. Puedo hablar mucho español, pero no perfectamente.
Entiendo.
Usualmente puedo comunicar con la gente que habla en español, pero no muy bien. You speak Spanish?
Sí. Y aprendí mucho cuando estaba en España.
Sí, sí.
Yeah.
All the rest of us are like,
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
No comprendo.
I'm working on French, but it's not going well.
we went to Quebec 2 years ago, my family and I, all 8 of us, and we went to Montreal, which had like some English speakers, but most of them did not speak English. And one of the main reasons we went was because my mom likes cooler temperatures, and I was learning French at the time. And they were like, hey, this is a great time. Like, she's learning French. We can use this. She'll be able to get, like, you know, cultural, whatever. And so we went to Montreal, and we went to Quebec City, like Old Town Quebec, and also, like, an island in the St. Lawrence River. And like, there was so much French everywhere. Like, it was insane, and it really did feel like Montreal kind of felt like another city, but it was very French too. But it all felt very European. And I haven't actually been to Europe yet, but it was very, very different and weird. But it was so cool. But I actually didn't end up speaking a whole lot of French because I did not feel very confident about my pronunciation. I felt very self-conscious. So my dad dug up his high school French and did all the translation for us, and it was like hilarious but really good at the same time.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so fun if you are learning a language to get to go be immersed in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the hardest part is that, like, I'm embarrassed place.
Yeah.
I was talking to another Lumerit person the other day, and she was saying she went to Puerto Rico, like last year or something, and she was saying she doesn't speak very much Spanish, just a little bit, and she said she had said some things that really embarrassed her. That's pretty much one of the rules of learning a new language.
Yeah.
You have to say some things that embarrass yourself.
So I asked my bus driver's wife where her boyfriend was, and what I was trying to ask her is, where were you born? But I asked her, where's your boyfriend? And she was like, in Spanish, my husband's right there. I asked again, and she's like, my husband's right there. And then I was just like, I quit.
Hello.
Wait. But she didn't deny that she had a boyfriend?
That was the answer. Like,
oh, okay.
My husband is right there. Like, what are you thinking? Yes, so that was great. I've also learned, like, some words not to say, or like, yes, you need to write that with an accent. So yes, definitely make those mistakes.
I was in Thailand, and I was riding down the elevator in our hotel that we were staying at, and I was in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which gets a lot of tourism. Like, you have a lot of people from Europe and other Asian countries that come there. So I must have heard at least like 15 different languages while I was there. But as I was riding in the elevator down, there was a couple on the elevator with me, and I'm typically, you know, Southern friendly kind of girl. So I just started talking to him, asking like, "How your day going?" Like, it's been like, I love this elevator. Like, I was saying really stupid stuff, but probably, I don't know. I thought I was doing okay. But they weren't responding. They just smiled, and I'm like, okay. And then the door dings, and they're about to go out, and he just goes, no speak English from Spain. And they just walk out the door, and it closes. And I have to finish the rest of the ride down by myself. But I never felt so dumb in my life, because I literally talked for nearly 10 minutes to these two, and they just smiled and nodded.
Oh man,
that's so terrible. They shouldn't have told you that they didn't speak English. They should have just let you kept believing it.
I'm like, oh geez, I should have noticed. But
yeah, that's like a good. That's true, because it's really weird when you're traveling. Like, there's so many other people traveling that you just can't assume you know where someone's from.
Oh yeah, they looked American.
America.
Which technically Americans are the mutts of the rest of the world. So
piggybacking off of that, I've heard that when you're traveling, like especially in Europe and such, to pretend you're from Canada instead of from the US, You have any thoughts on that?
Okay, so being in Spain was an interesting perspective on the American political situation. And yes, it's definitely true that people see America differently than a lot of Americans see America. And I actually really appreciated getting that perspective because I think so often we think we're being patriotic and actually we're having like a nationalistic attitude that we are the best when we are one of many cultures. And just because we're one of the most powerful nations or the most powerful nation does not make us the most, like the best or the most right.
Yeah.
So that was a really helpful perspective for me to be able to see. I mean, I wouldn't pretend I was something else. I don't think people are going to be mad at you, but they might ask you like, what's the deal with the things your country's doing? And honestly, it's a fair question.
Yeah. One thing I'll say to that, because that is something that we kind of had to do a little training on because we would be interacting with a lot of people that have had, negative opinions of Americans. The main thing is, I guess what they told us was that we are going to differentiate ourselves from that image. Like, don't be that American that they expect. Be the American that you want to present. Like, for instance, a lot of American tourists, like in Thailand, because of the warm tropical climate, they don't wear very modest clothes. Like, the girls with spaghetti strap tops or short shorts or things like that, which, according to Thai culture, which is actually really modest, is very offensive. But because, it's ugly Americans, they don't say anything. So one thing that we tried to do, was to wear modest clothing and to keep our conversations down, to, be mindful of those cultural things. And while not being ashamed of being an American, because, God made nations, so it's okay that we have our culture. The thing is, being respectful of that other culture. And I think don't get trapped in your own stereotype. Be the better American. So.
Yeah, that's a really cool perspective.
It's not mine. Like, they told us that. I wrote
So on all the trips that you've gone on, Jessica, have some of them been ones that you just kind of went on your own, or have they all been like organized by someone else? And like, which route would you recommend?
Okay. A number of them have been family trips. One was a missions trip. One was a trip where I helped teach things. And then Spain and Portugal were study abroad. I plan to do more traveling on my own once I finish my degree. So I love traveling with my family. That's cool because I get to know them in a really different sort of way because it puts us in a new setting together, and everybody learns and encounters cultures really differently. So it's cool to go with a group of people you know well because you'll know them in a totally different way. Missions trips are cool. Honestly, I think the biggest growth in a missions trip is really about the people who are going on the missions trip, because encountering that new culture really changes your perspective. And like, yes, it obviously impacts the people that we go to serve and is an opportunity to share the gospel. But I think a lot of it is it equips us to be more equipped for the mission field right around us where we live. My favorite was traveling to Spain and also teaching conferences in Singapore, because both of those were, well, okay, I'll mainly just focus on Spain because Singapore is like a little bit odd of an experience, kind of too hard to explain right now. But Spain was so fun because since I went to learn, I literally just got to soak in. And I think there's something really valuable about being able to just be totally in the curiosity mode. And since it was led by a Spanish native, it's really awesome because everywhere we went was a learning experience. So my favorite kind of trip is if you can go either with someone who knows the place well, or if you can stay with people who are part of the culture. And then like practicality wise, it's just going to be different depending what kind of trip you do. But like, I highly value getting to experience the culture really closely. And I think the best way you can do that is either like having someone to be part of the trip who knows it, or going and spending time with people who live there.
So have any of the trips that you've done been tours where like basically everything was planned out for you and you didn't have much wiggle room type of a thing?
I have had tours as part of trips, but never like the whole trip been a tour.
Okay.
But I think like a tour can be a good way to go. I would really look though for like that it's going to be interactive sort of tour, that it's people who are really good at what they do. But I love getting tours because that's a really good way to ask your questions and like dig in deeper. So like in Israel, we had a guy who was a local tour guide. He gave us a tour for a day and we just walked around and asked all kinds of questions. Mm-hmm. In Spain, it was like constantly getting tour because my professor is a medieval scholar. In the Dominican Republic, well, if any of you know Josh Raimundo, his dad is Dominican and we traveled with them. So that's like getting a tour. Zerica, my degree's in psychology.
A ghost in Wyatt's background.
I guess that's one thing I've kind of struggled with when it comes to traveling, during college is, is this applicable to my degree? And like, is it worth it if it's not? Because, it's not cheap to travel. I mean, it's not as expensive as we sometimes think it is, but at the same time, it is money, time, and effort. Go and do it.
Yeah. So I've been working on Spain stuff with Gibson Armstrong, who is the founder of the Spain program. And something he loves to say is connections are everything in today's culture. And education is about making those connections, and travel is the best education for that. So like, yeah, it may not be directly applicable. For instance, Spanish has nothing to do with my degree. And when I decided to go to Spain, I was like, why am I going to Spain particularly? Because this is kind of a skill like out of the blue. Because I mainly just wanted to study abroad. But it's so good because learning Spanish, just the process of learning a language makes different sorts of connections in my brain. Mm-hmm. And then like the whole experience of like being in a culture and having to speak a different language is a completely different experience. So, like, every time I travel, I learn so many more things about myself, about the world, about God, about it's just poof, your brain just goes
Do you have any recommendations on having experiences and seeing places that are kind of out of the way, like less of the, like if I went to London, everyone goes to, Westminster Abbey and all those different places, but how would you recommend kind of really immersing yourself in the culture and seeing kind of the more backroads, real country?
Yes. Okay, I love that question. So it takes time. Like, you have to plan enough time for your trip if you want to be part of the culture, because there's like the sort of trip where you plan everything out and then you try to hit all the stops. And first of all, like, travel never goes the way you expect. So if you try to do like that, you will probably be frustrated. I think it can be valuable to, like, say you're going to be in a city for 2 days. The first day you have a plan of like 5 places you'd like to see, and you're like, here's the top 3. If you only hit top 3, you're good with that. If you have more time, you could see the others. And then maybe the next day, you just like go sit at a cafe and you observe. And then you wander around the city and just walk and stop places and see them. Like, that's something I'd love to do, because that way you like make sure you get some of the things you want to see that are like big sites to hit. And that starts building your curiosity. But then you leave time to just get to go and observe and like slow down a little. I love cafes, especially in Europe.
Oh gosh, yeah. And if you know the language enough, or it's an English place where they speak English, some of the conversations you accidentally overhear.
Yes, I am a shameless eavesdropper. If you have conversations in public, they are not private. Another thing, any friends I know who travel, I ask them about where they go and what they see. So like, I have some friends who just got back from Barcelona, and even though I've been to Spain, I have not been to Barcelona yet. So I was grilling them on it, and I was talking to other people about it. And so I just asked them, like, what were the places worth seeing? What were the places that you saw that you like weren't planning on? And what's your best advice if I were going to go there? And then you like just pull that together and decide what you want to see. It's not like, one of the worst mindsets to have when you travel is, I only have this opportunity. Like, it has to happen now. And one of the best perspectives to have is, this is an adventure. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be a good experience.
Makes sense.
That's really cool. Like, someone told me once, like, it's not only when it comes to international travel, but if you think about the fact that every single person that you meet during the day was not an accident. Like, God orchestrates all kinds of crazy things in your life. And the more you try and control every aspect of it, like, the more you might miss out on something really cool and unexpected that God could just throw your way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, you don't want to be stupid and be like, I'm just going to go out and whatever. But, like, you just never know.
Yeah. Oh man, I have a little story about that. Okay, so when I was in Spain, one of my friends and I always would go find coffee shops in the morning because we're coffee addicts. And one day we walked to a coffee shop, and it was really close to this city called Santiago de Compostela. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it's really famous because the patron saint of Spain is Santiago, which is St. James. And so pilgrims will come from like all over Europe, and they'll hike to Santiago de Compostela and go to the cathedral, because like there's this belief that if you hike a certain amount or like bike a certain amount, pilgrimage enough, then your sins are forgiven. So anyway, not saying like theological critiques of that, but this is the view. And so people will hike from all over to this place. And so we were hanging out at this cafe, and there was a lady there who was hiking the Camino, which is the name of it, El Camino. And I was so excited to talk to her. And she was from France, and she'd been hiking already for like 2 weeks. It was so cool. And we were just finishing our food, and like we had some cake, and we weren't going to eat our cake because it was breakfast and we didn't feel like eating cake. And I was just like, do you want our cake? And she was so excited, because you just think about this hiker. She's been going for 2 weeks. And so like, it was so fun to be able to, first of all, like meet someone who's doing something that's on my bucket list, and then like hear her stories, have this connection like across countries, and then just be like, hey, you want my cake?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy little places. I mean, those are the memories that I remember. Like, you go to places that are famous, so you can be like, hey, guess what? Yeah, I've been there. But the things that like I hold really special are like, yeah, meeting that person, or like that moment when I just stood by the ocean and like breathed in the air of the other side of the Atlantic. Like those kind of things, not the planned things.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, because when we did our Canada trip, I forget what we did. I think it was on our way from Montreal to Quebec City. We stopped at this like side of the road ice cream stand. It was like soft serve, and we got fries and ice cream, and we sat in our huge van, and we like looked at this like river. It might have been like the St. Lawrence or part of it, and it was like the best part of the entire trip. And then like that night we stayed at a hotel that had a water slide, and like that like, and we got pizza, and like that half day was like the best part of the trip, even though we went like so many places and we did so many things, but like that was the most fun part. And it was like totally unplanned. And my parents planned everything out. They had like extensive travel plans, but it ended up being like the little things, or like the weird people that we met, or the like the crazy adventures we had that are so much fun to think about.
Yeah.
So true. I was doing an internship in Cleveland, Ohio for the summer, like 2-3 years ago. And you know, I didn't have a car while I was there, so I had to travel everywhere on foot or using the trains or the bus systems and stuff. And so I'd ridden the train over to this section of the city so many times, because that was the section that I was working in. And I was going up the stairs from the platform up to the access to the road, and this gentleman in front of me dropped his wallet. Like, it fell out of his pocket and just onto the stairs. Kept walking, didn't even notice. Like, oh my goodness, and I grabbed it before it could fall all the way down, and I followed him up to the top because he was walking fast for some reason. And I get to the top, I'm like, sir. He like, turns around, I'm like, is this your wallet? He's like, oh my goodness. And he was just so ecstatic that I had grabbed his wallet. And he comes up to me and he gives me like a bear hug. And like, this is a man I just met, like on the subway or the train. And it was a little creepy. Like after a minute, I was like, let go. Thank you. You're welcome. And, you know, I made my way on that. Like, I don't remember like 90% like of the times riding that train, and I did it so many times. But that one time, because you know, you just interacted with somebody that was unexpected. Like, I'll never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to Quebec City, they did not have our hotel room ready. And every hotel room within a 100-mile radius of the city was booked because there was a big bike race happening.
Wow.
And we have 8 people in our family, and we were stressed out for a few hours. It was really bad.
It's really crazy when you're with a large family with a lot of little people too.
Yeah. And our huge van got stuck on the side of a mountain in an apple orchard on an island in the St. Lawrence River. And we were stuck in the mud, and we had to put like sticks and rocks under the wheels, and my dad had to like ride on the back bumper while my mom like backed up the mountain, up the hill to get out of the orchard, which happened to be closed even though we thought it was open. We drove in and there was like no one there, and we kept going like down the hill, and they were like, okay, I think we're gonna turn around now, and we were stuck. It was terrible.
That does sound terrible.
And then we went to another apple orchard, and the guy who owned it was like this total jerk, and he was so picky about like the way we picked his apples. I was like, really, dude?
Yeah, not every experience is going to be a pleasant one.
No, but it's like the unpleasant ones that are the most hilarious to think about after.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember like everything that happened? It was the worst things always happen to our family. My parents were shipwrecked on their honeymoon.
Oh my
Stranded.
goodness.
Oh man.
They were told they ended up staying at a nudist resort for a day or two until they could fly back to Miami. And when they finally got back to their apartment in Virginia after so long and so much terrible adventure, Christmas Eve, my dad got this terrible sickness and thought he was dying. And my mom was like, I haven't been married 2 weeks and I'm going to be a widow.
Oh my.
And I was shipwrecked on my honeymoon. It was so bad.
That's incredible. What crazy stories.
Did anything happen to you when you were born?
No, I was fine. I think I stuck some peas in my nose and almost died, but like, I was alright. Stopped breathing once or twice, but I've been alright.
Wow.
Well, my parents are pretty sure that I'm not a Mexican because when I was born, apparently the little identification bands that I had on my wrist fell off. And so the doctors or the nurses, they brought me to my mom, and my mom said, how do we know I have the right baby? They said, well, we're pretty sure we got it right. So there were 2 babies born in the hospital tonight. Yours and the Mexican.
Oh gosh!
That's funny. You could have been switched at birth.
That's right.
So scary.
Oh wow.
I don't even know how to respond to that. That's just wow.
That's funny.
Like, does that bother you at all? Or I mean, do you just kind
No, I am exaggerating a little bit. There's no chance that I'm a Mexican. we know I'm not.
You could
Worst
take a
case
sample.
DNA testing, yeah.
You like test your parents and yourself and like just make sure you're the same.
wow.
Oh wow.
Oh my goodness. So my dad's name is Kyle Richard Wilson, and there was another Kyle Richard Wilson born the same day as he was in the same hospital who ended up doing some illegal things. So for the first like 10 years that my dad was working, every once in a while like something would happen and they would think that he had done the illegal things that the other Kyle had done. And it was this whole like mess because they had to like prove that he wasn't that Kyle. It was just blah.
Oh wow.
Oh man.